My mom living off her small pension is just a burden. There's no way I'm living with her. She's all yours.
Was this really how my brother treated the mother who raised us on her own? Their cruelty was unbearable. I couldn't leave Mom with them anymore.
I'll gladly take care of her.
I shouted, gripping my mom's hand tightly. Though, my mom wasn't some kind of burden at all. My name is Melissa. I'm 39 years old and a working mom. I married my husband, Kevin, after we started dating at work. We've been blessed with a son and a daughter, and life has been pretty good. Even my in-laws are great, kind, and respectful, with just the right amount of distance in our relationship. What worries me is my own mom. My mother got divorced when I was little and raised the three of us on her own. Now that I'm a mom of two myself, I finally understand how hard that must have been. I can't imagine raising two kids alone if, God forbid, Kevin and I split up. I have nothing but gratitude for my mom, who raised my brother and me so well. Now she's getting older. She worked until she was 65, and though she's in her 70s now, she's still active and doing fine. Still, every time I see her, I notice she's aging, and it breaks my heart. She's been living alone in her house, but I've been wondering if we should start planning for what's next. Then one day, Mom called me.
Wait, you're moving in with Mike?
Yeah, he suggested it. What do you think?
Mike is my older brother. In most cases, it'd be normal for the eldest son to live with an aging mother. You'd think I'd be grateful, but with Mike, it's not so simple. He's always disliked Mom. When Mom and Dad got divorced, I was only 3 years old, so I barely remember him. However, Mike was 10 years old at the time of the divorce, right on the brink of adolescence. He's always held a grudge against Mom. I remember him constantly complaining about being separated from our beloved dad and how our standard of living dropped, leaving him unable to buy the things he wanted. That was completely misguided. The divorce was Dad's fault, he cheated, and he didn't pay child support after the first year. I get why Mike felt the way he did back then, but to still blame Mom as an adult? That's just wrong. He hasn't been back to Mom's house in years, not for Christmas, Thanksgiving, or anything else. It's not like he lives far away, just a 10-minute drive, tops. He's married, but he didn't even introduce his wife to Mom. They don't have kids, so it's not like they're too busy either. I can't even picture his wife's face. Come to think of it, I don't even know what Mike looks like these days. When was the last time I saw him? Then, out of nowhere, he wanted to live with Mom? I had a bad feeling about this.
Why all of a sudden do they want to live together?
Their lease is up, apparently. But you know, Mike said his pay got cut because of the economy. So now they're struggling financially. That's why they want to move in.
Seriously? That's completely for their own convenience. I was stunned. Of course, Mike was still Mike. If it were for Mom's sake, I might understand. But this? Just to secure a place to live? I was totally against it. That said, it wasn't my decision to make, it was Mom's.
So, what do you want to do?
I enjoy living alone and taking it easy, but it's getting a bit inconvenient. And then, yesterday, Mike and his wife came to visit.
Wait, really?
Yes, Mike actually got down on his knees and said, "I'm sorry for everything up until now. Please let me take care of you from here on."
What? I didn't expect him to do that.
Right. Considering how much he's always disliked me, I was really touched.
Could it be that he had grown up a little? Thinking it might actually work out, Mom and Mike's family started living together. At first, everything seemed fine, based on the updates Mom gave me. Mike and his wife respected Mom's space and kept a low profile. However, soon enough, the truth came out.
Mike's wife has been so cold.
Mom started complaining over the phone.
His wife, Linda, is a stay-at-home mom, but she doesn't do anything. Not even cleaning or laundry.
What? Not even their own?
I've always done my own laundry, but now they're putting their clothes in my basket, expecting me to do it. They don't even offer to help.
Seriously?
I mean, it feels weird to take their clothes out and only do mine. So now I'm doing extra laundry, and it's made my back start to hurt.
Do they help with any other chores?
Not at all.
Apparently, Linda spent all day lying on the couch, eating snacks, and watching TV. She didn't clean up after herself, didn't go shopping, and didn't cook. Mom has been doing all the cleaning, shopping, and even cooking meals for the three of them. I couldn't believe it. It wasn't living together, it was freeloading. No, it was worse than freeloading. To top it off, I heard they weren't even contributing to the grocery or utility bills.
Are you serious?
Completely.
I was so shocked I couldn't even close my mouth. I asked.
Why didn't you talk all this through before they moved in?
However, Mom just sighed and said,
We did discuss it properly beforehand.
in the beginning, Mike did pay the agreed amount to Mom. Nevertheless, that didn't last long. When Mom tried to remind him, he'd say,
This month's been tough, and my pay got cut, so I can't afford it.
How are they spending money if they're not paying rent, utilities, or groceries?
Well, they did buy a new car recently.
Wait, what? If money's tight, why would they buy a car? It's not like they live somewhere inconvenient.
I helped them pay for it.
You paid for it?
I couldn't help blurting out in disbelief.
They said it would be easier for me to get to the hospital or go shopping if I had a ride. But I haven't ridden in that car even once yet.
Frustrated, I called Mike to confront him, but he refused to answer. Before I knew it, he had blocked my number. Unbelievable. A few days later, Mom called me again. This time, the news was even worse.
Mike got laid off. He's unemployed now.
She said, and it wasn't a joke. A few days after that, I started to worry because I couldn't get in touch with Mom. She wasn't answering her phone, and she hadn't called me either. Feeling uneasy, I asked Kevin to watch the kids and took the train to Mom's house. If only I lived closer, I could visit more often. Because of Kevin's job, we live pretty far away. After 2 hours on the train, I arrived at my childhood home. The house looked more rundown than I remembered, and it filled me with a sense of sadness. I rang the doorbell, but there was no answer. Therefore, I gently tried the door. It wasn't locked, which meant someone was home. Why wasn't anyone responding? As I debated calling out, I heard a groan. It was unmistakably Mom.
Mom?
I rushed to her room and found her lying on the floor.
Mom.
My heart sank. I ran to her side, calling her name. Her eyes opened slightly.
Mom. Are you okay? I'm calling an ambulance right now.
I grabbed my phone to dial 911, but Mom weakly grabbed my hand to stop me.
Mom?
Hungry.
What? Are you hurt? Do you feel sick? I'm calling for help.
So, hungry.
Even as I tried to pull my hand away, Mom mustered all her strength to hold on. Finally, she gasped
I'm hungry.
and collapsed again.
Thank you. I hadn't eaten anything since yesterday.
She said, devouring the food I'd brought back in a frenzy. Watching her eat so quickly, I couldn't help but marvel at her appetite, even in her 70s. Yet, this wasn't the time to admire her vitality. Mom explained that she had hurt her back and couldn't move, and Mike and Linda had left her alone while they went out for fun. What on earth were they thinking? As I fumed, I heard the front door open. Mike and Linda were back.
Hey, Mike. What's the big idea, leaving Mom alone when she can't even move because of her back?
Whoa, you scared me. Oh, it's you, Melissa. You've aged since I last saw you.
Shut it. You've aged too, Mike.
Why are you even here? You can't just barge into someone else's house.
Mom was passed out from hunger.
Not my problem. There's instant food, isn't there?
I checked everywhere, from the fridge to the pantry. It's completely empty. You know she can't shop with her bad back, so what were you doing?
Mike's utter lack of concern for Mom only made my anger boil over. However, Mike didn't seem to care at all. He clicked his tongue in annoyance.
You don't live with her, so it's easy for you to talk.
I heard Mom does all the housework.
Of course, she does. We're living with her, so she should be doing that much for us.
And Linda doesn't do any chores, does she?
I glared at my sister-in-law, who was standing behind Mike, and she glared back at me.
Shut up. We're letting her live with us, so she should be doing everything. That's only fair.
What a perfect match they were. They deserved each other. But this wasn't about them.
What's the point of living together if Mom is doing everything by herself?
She feels safe knowing we're here in case something happens.
In case something happens? This is the something happens moment.
I couldn't contain my anger, but Mike and Linda couldn't care less. In fact, they both glared at me like I was the annoying one. Then Mike said,
You're so annoying. Mom's small pension makes her a burden.
And yet you used that small pension to buy a car.
I shot back.
Of course, I did. I'm the eldest son, and I'm taking care of our parent.
When? What care have you provided?
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I shouted so much that my throat started to hurt. Kevin, who had never been close to Mom, was now a completely different person, a selfish stranger. It was pathetic, and I felt so sorry for Mom.
Think about Mom for once, will you?
Shut up. You're just an outsider, so stay out of it.
No matter how much I yelled, Mike wouldn't listen. He glared at me, annoyed.
I thought living with Mom would mean we could live comfortably off her pension.
He sneered.
But I didn't realize she gets so little. What a miscalculation.
Then he sighed and looked at Mom with cold, unfeeling eyes. Mom hung her head, looking so sad. Then Mike laughed and said,
Honestly, a broke old lady like her is just a burden.
Mike.
I shouted, unable to believe what I was hearing.
If she's so important to you, you take her.
He said, as if it was nothing. I couldn't believe it. Even if he hated her, I wanted to think he had some sliver of gratitude toward her deep down. Though, any hope I had for that was crushed. I clenched my jaw and glared at him. He and Linda just laughed smugly, as if they had one. There was no way I was letting those people keep taking advantage of Mom. I wouldn't let them make her suffer anymore. Still glaring, I smirked and said,
You're right. Mom can't live a peaceful life with you two around. I'll gladly take her.
Melissa?
Mom looked at me in surprise, and I smiled warmly at her to reassure her.
It's okay, Mom. I'm sorry to make you leave this house, but come live with us.
But what about your husband?
He's been saying it's fine for you to live with us for a while now. I just thought it might be better for you to live with Mike. But not anymore. It's settled, Mom. Come live with us. Let me repay you for everything you've done for me.
As I said that and reached out my hand, tears welled up in my mom's eyes.
Thank you, Melissa.
Get out of here. Go enjoy your cramped little rabbit hutch.
After glaring at Mike, we left the house. Mom's belongings were shockingly few. Apparently, Linda had been selling them off one by one since she didn't work. Unbelievable. I should have come to get her sooner. No amount of regret could make up for it. Though, what Mike said, even though he'd never seen my home, hit a sore spot. I glanced apologetically at Mom.
I'm sorry, Mom. I rushed you out of there. Our place is really small, so it might feel cramped.
Our apartment, matched to the income of 2 working adults, was tiny. It wasn't even big enough to give each of our teenage kids their own room. As I worried about how to make space for Mom, Mike added insult to injury.
Just so you know, Mom's room is gone now. This house is ours.
I was about to snap at him, but Mom gently placed her hand on mine.
It's okay.
Mom.
It's okay, Melissa. Let's live in a mansion together.
What?
What was she talking about? I stared at her, confused, and she turned to Mike and Linda with a sweet smile.
Thank you for everything so far. From now on, I'll be living with Melissa's family in a mansion.
Mike and Linda were just as stunned as I was. However, Mom didn't bother explaining.
Goodbye.
She said simply, and pulled me along as we walked away.
What did she mean by that?
Probably just sour grapes. Or maybe she's finally lost it.
Ignoring their voices behind us, I headed home with Mom. 2 years later, peace at home was interrupted by an unexpected invasion, Mike and Linda. It was late at night when I checked the security camera after hearing a noise. There they were. It had been ages since I'd seen them. I groaned. Trouble as bad as a burglar. When I opened the door, the 2 of them barged in. Then Mike immediately shouted,
What's going on?
Hey, it's the middle of the night. Stop yelling. That's so rude.
Shut up. Just explain this.
You're the one yelling, and if I shut up, how am I supposed to explain?
That logical reply made him frustrated.
So, what is it?
I asked. He pointed dramatically at the wall of the house.
What the hell is this house?
It's a house. In Spanish, we call it a casa.
I mean, this mansion. What's the deal with this mansion?
A mansion is a large, impressive home.
That's not what I meant.
I kept giving deliberately vague answers, which only made Mike more irritated. He scratched his head in frustration.
How the hell did you build a mansion like this on Mom's pension and your salaries? I'm broke right now. You've gotta help me.
That's right. My family had moved to a very big house. Compared to this house, our previous one really was rabbit-sized.
Yeah, you're right. With our income, we couldn't afford a house like this no matter what.
I smiled sweetly and said,
Thanks, Mike.
What?
My sudden gratitude left him confused. Looking straight at him, I repeated,
Thank you, really.
What are you?
Thanks for letting me take Mom. You see, this house was built with Mom's money.
What? Where would she get that kind of money? She barely scraped by raising the 3 of us and only gets a small pension.
Well, it came from an inheritance.
Huh?
Our grandfather, Mom's dad, was pretty wealthy. Didn't you ever hear about that?
Now that you mention it, I think I vaguely remember hearing something like that.
Mom inherited quite a bit of money.
No way. We were so poor growing up.
Apparently, Mom was so determined to raise us on her own that she refused to touch the inheritance. She didn't want to rely on anything from her ex-husband either.
I was genuinely surprised when I first learned how much it was. Even though she could have used it, Mom chose to take the harder path. I couldn't help but respect her for that. Sure, we didn't have much money back then, but I never felt deprived. She let me go to the schools I wanted and gave us as normal a life as she could.
And yet you treated her so horribly. You kicked her out like she was nothing. So, why are you here now? And at this hour? Just leave.
I pointed firmly to the door, but Mike didn't move. Then Linda stepped forward.
So, this house is technically your mom's, right? That means it'll eventually be ours too, doesn't it?
I frowned at her audacity. She smirked and looked down on me.
Obviously. As part of the inheritance. Even if she leaves it to you, we're entitled to our share by law.
She knew a bit about inheritance law. However, I wasn't about to back down.
Sorry to disappoint you.
I said with a smirk of my own.
This house was gifted to me while Mom is still alive. The deed is already in my name.
What? You can't just do that. Even if it's a gift, we still have a legal claim to our share of the estate. You'll have to pay us eventually.
Linda might not lift a finger around the house, but she sure knew her rights. Legally, she wasn't wrong. If Mom had given me the house knowing it would reduce the value of Mike's inheritance, he could still make a claim against me after she passed. Nevertheless, too bad for him. We weren't trying to punish Mike or anything. I showed them a document I had prepared for a moment like this. Kevin, sensing the tension, brought in a document I had prepared. Bless him, he really is amazing.
Here, this is a breakdown of Mom's assets.
What?
First, this house was gifted to me.
What?
Second, most of the remaining cash is going to our middle brother.
What?
And lastly, there's this.
I pointed to one final line on the document. It was the house Mike and Linda were currently living in.
The family home. You got it as a living inheritance, didn't you? Don't even try to deny it. The house may be old, but it's in a great location and a really valuable property. Honestly, compared to this mansion or the cash, you're the one who came out ahead.
I felt pretty dissatisfied when the results came out, but there was no helping it. If this means I can cut ties with them, it's a small price to pay. Even our middle brother has agreed to it.
Any complaints now?
I didn't know how hard things were for them financially, but there was no sympathy for someone who kicked Mom out and took over her house.
I hate to admit it, but the house is yours now. Just leave. From now on, we're done.
I shouted, but Mike and Linda didn't budge, looking confused and flustered.
What is it? Do you still need something?
When I glared at them, Mike muttered, avoiding eye contact.
We don't have it anymore.
What? What don't you have?
The house, it's gone.
What?
Well, the house was transferred to my name as a gift.
Oh, good. And what do you mean you don't have the house?
I sold it.
What? What did you just say?
I already sold it. That house is gone now.
It turns out that he sold the house as soon as the deed was in his name. What was he thinking? Still, if he got a lot of money for it, that should have solved his problems. I had no idea why they were showing up at my house in the middle of the night. Mike and Linda kept getting paler as they stood in front of me.
The truth is, all the money from selling the house went to pay off debt.
What? Wait, what are you saying?
I was trying to turn things around and got into investing.
Okay.
And the investments were a huge failure.
Okay.
So even after selling the house and paying off the debt, it wasn't enough.
Okay.
What should I do?
I didn't know what to say. Apparently, they had paid off their debt initially, but instead of saving, Mike started investing again. Predictably, it went horribly wrong, leaving them with even more debt and creditors chasing them.
That's why you had shown up in the middle of the night.
Please, let us stay here, or at least help us pay off the debt.
There's no way I'm letting you stay. This is all your own fault.
As Mike and Linda tried to force their way into the house, Kevin and I worked together to block them. As we struggled, I heard something.
Wait, is that a siren?
What?
Sure enough, a police car pulled up in front of the house. Looking panicked, Mike and Linda ran off. Clearly, their debt wasn't the only issue. They must have done something illegal. As it turns out, Mom had called the police. Watching them leave, Mom quietly murmured.
Maybe I failed as a parent.
Afterward, I got a phone call from Mike. Apparently, Linda had filed for divorce. It was obvious. For someone like her who never wanted to work, Mike had probably lost all his usefulness. I thought it was ironic that someone who hadn't even properly informed us about their marriage would bother reporting their divorce. As expected, the call was just to ask for money. It turns out Linda wasn't normal either. After the divorce, she started investing, claiming,
Unlike him, I have a good eye for opportunities.
she quickly went bankrupt. When she couldn't handle her debt, she turned to Mike, crying for help.
Unbelievable. I'm done with you.
Was all I said. These days, Mom enjoys gardening in the beautiful yard of her new home. She's even started growing vegetables, and my teenage kids love helping her with the harvest. Our middle brother and his family visit occasionally, enjoying the spacious house. This home is Mom's final sanctuary. I'll make sure she spends the rest of her life happy here. It's my way of repaying her for everything she's done for me.